What if surrender isn't giving up, but coming home to yourself? In this powerful conversation, intuitive healer Emily Gilcrease shares how letting go isn't about losing control. It's about reclaiming your inner wisdom, aligning with your truth, and remembering who you really are. Welcome to the Happiness on Tap podcast, where we bring you inspiring stories and practical insights for a happier, more fulfilling life. Your go to podcast for uplifting conversations that stir the heart and ignite the spirit. I'm your host, Leann, and today we're diving into the heart of transformation with a guest who embodies the healing power of surrender. Emily Gilcrease is an intuitive healer, Reiki practitioner, behavioral analysis, and life coach who weaves together spirituality and psychology to help others remember their innate worth and wisdom. A 34-year-old student of life from Houma, Louisiana, Emily's mission is simple but bold: to leave the world a better place than she found it. With over 10 years' experience in psychology and a deep spiritual calling, she helps people tune in, slow down, and reconnect with the voice that never left them, their own. This episode is an invitation to soften your grip, trust your path, and find power in your surrender. Let's welcome Emily to the show. Emily, it is so wonderful to have you join us today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I am excited for this conversation. It felt like it took forever to get here. So let's get started, Emily. Sacred surrender is such a powerful phrase. What does that look like in your life right now?
Sacred surrender. It's really everything. It's like the driving force behind the direction in which we're going. It's realizing that we can't control anything outside of ourselves. And we believe that we can, which is an illusion, but it's cracking through that illusion and coming back to the knowing that the only thing we control is what's going on inside of ourselves. And when we do focus on that, we can release what's going on around us and surrender and let life show us the next step, the next way. When we're connected to our inner world, our outer world is what we are surrendering. That's what sacred surrender to me is, and in practice.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that is something I relate to. It also really helps limit all the noise around us. You know, when you are focused on what you can control, your reaction to things, your inner peace, it just kind of muffles those outside sounds and noises and anxiety that keep us hyper focused on everything that we can't control.
Yeah, exactly. And as you're sharing that, it's like you're creating your own melody, like your own lullaby inside of yourself, or your own landscape, if you will. And everything is so crazy outside, whether it's news, people's opinions, unexpected changes in life, all of those things. It's like having an inner scape to go back to that is in your control, like maybe there's pillows in there, you can go like rest, or like take a breath inside of yourself and know that you are capable of holding yourself and not looking outside for that to happen. I think, yeah, that's beautifully put.
You had asked me before we got on camera about some of the answers that I give when I get to be a guest on a podcast. And one of the questions that a lot of people ask me is, what does happiness on tap mean to me? And that's what it means. It means being in control of my happiness, that I get to choose what makes me happy. I get to choose to walk away from the noise and go outside and ground in nature. I get to choose what I allow in my happy space.
There's so much power in that phrase, I get to choose. And I think that that too plays into what surrender is getting to choose and letting go of the rest, surrendering the rest. The things that you're not choosing, just let those things go and surrender them. Ooh, yes. I wanted to ask you about happiness on tap as well. So it's funny that you shared that. That's so beautiful.
I think when we are intentional, we can control that landscape. If I just let the news of what was going on control me, I would want to hide in a corner all day and never leave the house. And I have felt that animosity when I was in trauma response, and I didn't like it at all. And it was really hard at that time when I was in it to use those tools that I had to get me back to my happy place because I was in such a heavy fog. But I could always remember that I knew the things that brought me joy. So if that meant, breaking out my coloring book and my crayons and turning on a cartoon and sitting on the floor, you and I talked about this earlier in another conversation, that could take away all the other noise and I could just focus on creating this beautiful piece of art or just sitting in it, sitting and coloring. And so I just think that having intention and focus and remembering the tools that we have accumulated over time and remembering what really brings us joy and happiness gives us so much power.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. There's like layers to what you just shared, from intention to using your happiness as a tool to ground you, get reprieve from what's going on outside of yourself, go inward, or have that experience that you can call on, and then you can show up differently, more centered, more in your essence of your true self. But going back to what you said about intention, my goodness, it is one of the simplest yet most profound practices. And I've seen people that I encounter in daily life versus clients, like anyone and everyone, even some of the deepest pain that we hold on to. When we are intentional and we set intentions, it changes everything. It goes to what you said about maybe like consumption or getting wrapped up in the drama or the news or this and that. Okay. And everyone has their own relationship with consumption. If they do watch the news, if they don't, whatever. I personally don't, but that is intentional. There's a reason why. And if you do watch the news, okay, maybe you don't want to give up watching the news. You want to be in the know of what's going on, but you find that it's still dragging you down. You're not quite sure why it has this power over you. What if you set an intention before you turned it on? My intention is to inform myself about X, Y, and Z. And so then whenever you find yourself in that, heaviness or that response of what you just consumed, you can remind yourself, well, my intention was to inform myself, not to take this on as my own, et cetera, et cetera. And it's funny how it's so much powerless when you can remind yourself that you had an intention, because then you're like, oh yeah, that's right. And all of a sudden it starts to dissipate.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Those are great tools. I learned that my husband is the consumer. He loves to be in the know. I am more of a keep my head in the sand kind of person. I really don't want to know. Just let me know what I need to know to protect myself. But otherwise, it's just too draining. But I think that is such a great suggestion,
Mhm.
is holding on to the attention of why you're allowing yourself to consume, to be informed, but not allowing it to affect you, because it's really not anything you can control. You're just
Right.
there trying to understand what is going on in the world and what do we need to know to protect ourselves, or maybe to inspire us to change.
Right.
What can we do to help communities who are going through droughts and fires, and what can we do to better the world, like you said, leave the world a better place. So if we have those focused intentions, it really gives us direction, again, to help stop that negative noise.
Absolutely. And as human beings, as inhabitants of the world, if we go back to the way things were hundreds of years ago, whenever we were in tribes, we were never made to be informed about what's going on the other side of the world. That is too big of a burden for someone to carry who actually cannot do anything. Now, there's a difference if you can fly a jet over somewhere and go drop off supplies. Yeah, maybe it would be very beneficial for you to be informed. I don't have that, but I can do a lot where I am. And so I do want to be informed about what's going on in my community, in my vicinity, in my area, because that's where my power is. And when I focus on things that I know I actually don't have any control or, you know, the means to actually make a change with, then I'm actually doing a disservice by giving my energy to that, because my energy is being spent somewhere that I can't do anything with it. So it's really a conscious decision.
Mhm. Beautifully said. When did you first start listening to your intuition, and how did it change the way you live and serve?
It's a really big question for me, um, because growing up, I had this feeling. I had this feeling that I didn't belong, that I something was missing, or like that I had a different family. I didn't know how to explain it, but it just was a feeling that I had. And I grew up with my mom and my dad. They divorced whenever I was young, maybe 6 or 7. And that was my mom and my dad. I went into adulthood and I started doing self work probably in my at the age of 20, I would say, is when I really started diving deep into it. By 28, I had been married, divorced, figured out what codependency was, worked through that, moving on in life. And something was still coming up. And my mom and I were having a conversation because she knows like everything that I discover about myself, limiting beliefs, patterns and things like that as I'm evolving and discovering. And she's like, I really need to tell you something. Because I'm like, there's something there. It's like, she's like, I think it's from your childhood. I'm like, no, I've gone back, I've forgiven this and that and blah, blah, blah. She's like, I need to tell you that your dad is not your dad. Now, that was the biggest moment for me. It's not to say when I started listening to my intuition, but it's when I realized what my intuition was. Because In that moment at 28 years old, when I found out that the man who I've called dad my whole life is not my biological father, he's still my dad. But when I get that information, this is that moment, because this is the moment that I have been questioned and still am questioned when I share my story of, oh my God, I bet you were pissed. Oh, you probably didn't talk to your mom. You da 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 da. What happened when I found that out inside of myself? I was like, I've known myself this whole time. I have known something all along, and everyone else told me that I was wrong, that I was making things up. Of course, you fit in. Look at all the friends you have. Oh, da 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 da. That was affirmation that I was like, oh, was that my intuition? And instantly, yes, it was. You were correct. You knew the whole time. But what happens is we're born knowing, and then we're taught growing up all the ways to disconnect ourselves from that knowing and start to believe what other people are showing us and saying to us, because they're mirroring their experiences and their wounds onto us, and we're taking them on as ours, and we're changing our identity. We're getting farther and farther from ourselves. So yes, when I was 28, much later in life, and found that out, I was sucked right back into, no, no, everyone else was wrong. And not in a humbling way, though. Not like everyone else doesn't know anything, but no, how beautiful is it that I was right all along? Because who else to be right about yourself than you? That was my intuition. And from that point, I stopped doubting it so much.
Thank you for sharing that intimate story. There is so much in that you, like you said, you knew, but at the same time, we allow, or even if we don't allow, we get so much of our beliefs, our thoughts, even our identity handed to us from so many external sources that for years we believe that that is our beliefs, our identity, our thoughts. And we stop learning how to use our intuition, and, listening to your gut and really questioning, like, is this really how I feel, how I think, how I believe? And hearing your story and that you were able to do this so young in life is such a blessing for me to see, because I didn't start doing that until I was in my 50s. And so, my goal and my mission in the people I work with is to help them realize those things and learn to listen and pay attention and ask those questions, and not be afraid of the answers, um, not be distracted by everyone telling you you're wrong, or should feel this way or feel that way. Um, it's so powerful hearing your story at your age, when you were really able to clearly see that you really knew, but so many people had told you you were wrong. And it didn't change how you felt about your dad or your mom. It just really acknowledged that you knew something just wasn't right or didn't make sense. And we should be able to question those things without fear of judgment, without shame, without, fear of the answer.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're welcome. And thank you for that reflection. And when it comes to age and healing, I think that there's something very big to be said about the older you are, when you are going inward and doing the work, I actually have a deeper respect for every single day that passes before a person starts doing the work, because all of those days of without that same awareness that we come to know when we do the work, all of those days without that awareness, those days matter. And those are days that, it's like, I'm blessed that I did start discovering this in my 20s, because I had 20 years. And my mom and I were talking about this a few days ago, and she's like, you have to remember, I have 2 more decades than you. So, and I said, exactly. And so you don't need to tell me that, because I do know that. And I am so proud of you and how far you've come, because you have so much more to unpack and to go through. And it's so much harder but more rewarding at the same time. But it's just as easy to say, oh, that's it's too much, I can't do it, it's too much. So I truly, truly respect and commend each and every person at every age who's doing this work, because it's life changing, changes our lives.
It truly does. And it truly is. If we spend our life thinking it's too late, we're too old, we can't change, we're missing out on so much more that's ahead of us. And even the stuff we unpack, it is so enlightening, so empowering to sit back and watch it, to sit back and see it when you're not living in it. And it's not that you're saying, well, I woulda, shoulda, coulda. You're acknowledging that you went through something, you experienced it, you learned lessons from it. And now here you are 10 years along or 20 years along, and you're looking back at those lessons. And it really helps you understand from so many different perspectives, maybe what you went through, where you inherited those thoughts, beliefs, maybe understanding your parents better, because we certainly didn't connect with them as young children when we're rebellious and when we're trying to find our way. We think they don't know anything, or, and we don't take the time or are given the opportunity to really know our parents. And so when I went through my trauma and I looked back at trying to understand how my mother became the woman that she is, I was able to look back at her mother, because I used to get sent to stay with my grandmother when I was young and being punished. That I thought, well, this makes sense. Now I understand, because I see what my mother went through as a child. And she did the best that she could with what she knew and how she raised me. And it flips the script from anger or hatred or misunderstanding or whatever that stirs inside us when we can see it from a different perspective.
Oh my gosh, yes. Perspective shifting is everything. And as you're speaking, the word alchemize kept coming. Is we don't turn away from our pain and our experiences. We look towards them, because they have that fuel for us when we really can look at them and, like you said, understand things from a deeper level, and the things that were about us and the things that were not, because most of it wasn't. And when we look in that way and we can let go and surrender those things that were not ours, we're creating space. We're creating space to then be shown what is going to come in, that from this new energy, this new frequency, this new understanding, this new version of ourselves from this point and this space. Wow, I can't wait to see what's going to be attracted now. And that to me is the beauty of the work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The beauty of the work. You describe yourself as a student of life. What's something life has recently taught you about letting go or about self love?
Hmm. Yeah. I've not spoken about this before, but it is time to share because it is probably the biggest lesson that I have learned. So over the last couple of years, I have been on a fertility journey, and I have had 3 pregnancies that didn't make it. It wasn't the right time. And throughout those experiences, I've been discovering so much about myself, so much more of me to love, so many beliefs to release that were never mine, traumas to visit and let go of. Like, it's been a couple years of discovering and feeling. And I recently, so after the that series of events, which included surgery and a lot of experiences came with it. And I would not trade any of them because I believe too that there is such an untapped amount of power in our ability as women and female, being able to reproduce, being able to have a womb, to be able to create life on earth, all of these things that I think are not really viewed or presented as sacred anymore. There's a beautiful opportunity to get that sacred connection with yourself and with your womb space and with your, divine feminine, but that's a separate topic. So for me, I'm in that space, right? And it's from that space that I was able to this year say, okay, I want to see some answers. I want to discover, because I wasn't really, the doctor's like, it's very common for miscarriages, and you can have up to 3 before anything is deemed as something wrong. It's just not really spoken about. So, okay, after number 3, I didn't ask any questions for a little while, and that was purposeful for me. That was part of the time for me to go learn things about myself and discover and get me ready, right? So this year in January, I was like, okay, I am ready. I've done the work. I understand. I want to know. So taking the steps, doing the tests, this test, that test, etc., coming to a point where I was faced with, okay, the results of this are going to determine whether you can or cannot have kids. And in that moment in my life, this was very recent, I knew I really needed to protect and care for a part of me that was very vulnerable and opening up to this whole possibility of information. And so this is where we flex the muscle of what is in my control, what can I control. And for me, I'm blessed that I was able to say, okay, I'm not going to the office, I'm working from home right now, I am taking X, Y, and Z off of my plate, I'm gonna be increasing my grounding, I'm gonna be playing with my pets, I'm gonna be taking more baths, and I'm doing all of these self-loving things because I know I'm not waiting for me to need it. This is a time where this is gonna help me. And I had the most profound healing sessions with different teachers and mentors of mine where I got in there and realized these deep rooted beliefs that had me feeling scared and stuck to learn about myself. Because the truth is, if I want to be a mother, I get to be a mother. And I get to choose what my definition of motherhood is. Regardless of what my body can and cannot do. Because that was a limiting belief. There was stuff there feeling like if I can't birth a baby, then I'm not as worthy of a woman as this woman because she birthed 3 children, and relating my womanhood and my worth to whether or not I can have a child in my vagina. That's just simply not true. That has nothing to do with my worth. But those are the kinds of ways that I practice letting go and surrendering, because to let go and surrender, I had to see what was keeping me stuck. And what was keeping me stuck was this thing on the outside of myself, which is a child, a healthy child, and it's not happening. And so I was taking it in as something's wrong with me. I have to figure it out. I need to keep trying. I gotta, and there was a lot of periods of time there where I was not focusing on it, but maybe that was also avoiding it. I don't know. But when I was ready to see it, it was right there clear in front of me. And when I got to that belief that I felt like I had to birth a child to be a real mother, that is where the surrender came. That is where right now what I'm learning as a student of life came is, here it is. Here's that belief at the root of all of this stuff that's keeping me here. So what is the lesson? As a student, I'm looking for the lesson. What is the lesson? The lesson is that is an old, outdated belief that I picked up and didn't look at from my adulthood. And now I have the opportunity to look at it and say, it's not true. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't make me feel good. And I don't believe it anymore. I let it go. And now I'm in this space where I have no doubt that motherhood is in the works for me. How will it happen? I don't know. But that's the thing about surrender. We don't need to know how. We make space for the how when we get out the way. We know the thing that we want, and really it's not a thing, it's a feeling that we're chasing. That's what manifesting is about the feeling. So I know the feeling, and I know that it's coming and it is going to happen, and how it's going to happen beats me, but it'll be better than I could ever have imagined. And I know that that's true because every time I say that and I truly believe it, it happens.
Thank you again for sharing a very intimate, vulnerable part of yourself. And, just having the courage to share your story and speak it out loud. You are putting it out there for the universe to hold it for you, to bring you your future, however that transpires, whether it's through adoption, whether it's through natural childbirth, however that transpires, the universe is going to bring you exactly what you need when you need it at the time that it's meant for you.
Amen. Yes.
And that surrender is such a powerful piece of the growth process. My oldest niece, went through a few miscarriages, and they were, ready to just give up on having a child of their own. And she was really lost in those kind of same beliefs. Like, how could my mother have 2 children? How, my dad's a twin. How, why can't I? And just really taking on that heavy weight of belief that there was something wrong with her, that she couldn't conceive a child. And, of course, then they start doing all the testing on her. Then they're doing the testing on her husband. And the tests are like, we don't know what to tell you. You should be fine. But this happens, like you said, that, it's natural if this happens a couple of times. And you don't ask the questions because, unfortunately, sometimes the doctors just don't have the answers. And we can't look to them to give us a definitive answer unless it's something internal in our organs and how, we may not be able to, our fallopian tubes, or who knows. But when we're seeking those answers, that's where the other exterior thoughts start to come in, and it goes to self-blame and self-worth and self-loathing, and all those things that we carry. And those things are our blockages. They really are. And what really made my heart happy was that my niece knew, I think through something I may have said in passing, but she knew that I read tarot cards. And she's like, you know what? I am looking for answers, but the places I'm looking for answers just aren't giving me the answers I want to hear. She says, so I want to come to you if you will read my cards, because you're listening to the universe. You're not looking at a medical book or my medical history or my husband's issues, or you're trusting that the universe is going to bring you the answer. And I'm open to listen and receive it. And I'm not coming in with any prior thoughts. I'm just allowing you to hear what you hear, and I'm accepting to whatever it may be. And miraculously, the cards did exactly what they were meant to do. And they let her know that she would be conceiving a child. And it was literally within days. So, she reached out to us right away, and she's like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. And I think it was just getting, like you said, getting out of your own way and trusting in what is meant for us is what is going to happen, however that is.
Absolutely. And that it will be even better than we imagined, because we have such limited minds. We can only imagine things based on our past or what we've seen other people. But we live in a limitless world with limitless possibilities, and the way things fall into place sometimes makes no sense, and sometimes is totally different than what we ever would have predicted. And I love what you said about the tarot, because I can't tell you how many times, and the way that I am, I'll do readings for, and I have like oracle decks, and I'll do
Mhm.
readings for clients or friends, family, if they ask for it or if I feel called to. But for me, I'm very intentional about it's intuitive led. I'll be, walking, and then I'll be like, go pull a card. I'll hear something tell me, go pull a card. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go pull the card. And I'll ask, okay, sometimes I'll ask a question, or sometimes I'll be like, just show me. And I've gotten a fertility card almost every single time I've asked anything about this journey. And then even my mom has a tarot deck, and it was the time that the testing was coming, and it was a woman getting answers. There's children, and then there's a trip. And my partner and I had a trip planned. And this is being led by your intuition. Things make sense without you trying for them to make sense. I had a trip planned. At the time I planned it, I didn't have anything else going on. The time that the trip was literally days after I got those test results that told me that everything was fine in my body after the MRI and all of the different testing. Everything had come back. And then the trip was planned. And that's also what the card said. It's just funny though how as humans, some of us are so in that, and some of us are not. And I'm just really glad that this is the pool I'm swimming in, because it's so fun. So fun.
You are just adorable.
And hearing your stories too, I'm like, that's fun. Like that's what life is meant to be, is enjoyed.
Yeah, it truly is. Letting go often gets really misunderstood as a weakness. How do you see surrender as a form of strength and reclamation? And we've kind of covered this.
We have, but I think just to go a little further is it's kind of like what you were mentioning earlier about how the more you have to unpack and to uncover, the more you have to discover. And so the more opportunity to get to know yourself. And when you are committed to living a life in alignment, you're never going to want to push away opportunities that bring you closer to yourself, because you know that by becoming closer to yourself, your life is going to shift even just a little bit more into exactly what your desires are, what you're meant here to experience, your passion, your purpose, your mission, whatever you want to call it. And same thing as what we talked about, the making space. The more we alchemize, the more we let go, the more pain we can see as purpose, the more space we create. And a person who has a lot of space in their lives has to be strong, because it's very easy when we create space, there's feelings that are on the opposite end that are like loneliness, boredom, all of those lower vibrational feelings. Not bad, they're there. We can feel them sometimes if we need to, but it does require strength. Going back to your question of it being viewed as a weakness, it requires a strong person and a strong mindset to know that you're creating space so that things can come in that are more aligned, that do serve you, that are more intentional and purposeful, that you're choosing, that aren't just being pushed onto you. So I think letting go creates space, and being in a space where you have all of that requires strength. It requires strength, and it requires trusting a source that is greater than your own, and admitting that you have to admit that you don't have it figured out. You have to admit that you're not in control. You have to admit that you're not perfect. You have to admit that that didn't go as planned. You have to do a lot of looking at yourself and be humble about it, so that you also don't then go into the opposite side of shaming yourself and blaming yourself and beating yourself up. Again, requiring that strength and that trust. Okay, I see what I was doing there. But the reason I was doing that was because when I was little, I had to have everything in order for me to get love. Oh, I feel for that little girl. I'm showing her so much love and compassion. It's okay, girl. Let's do something fun today. Let's go. And we're gonna let go of that control. I'm gonna let this happen on its own and go do something instead that will help calm that part of me that is needing to grip for control, because she's actually scared and that's what's going on.
And I don't think I could have said that better myself. It does take a lot of strength, an unbelievable amount of strength. And one of the modalities that really helped me with letting go was one, realizing that I didn't have to try to do it alone, because it can be very heavy, very scary to make those decisions and to make those shifts. And that, I tried through visualizations, through meditations, to do those things to learn how to let go. But I found that I really kind of needed an external source to hold me while I was walking those paths. And the one thing that really helped me was hypnotherapy, because I was able to surrender trust in the person who was guiding me. And that relationship took time to develop. Like, I trusted this person. I had known her for about 2 years, but she was in school to become a hypnotherapist. So I got to kind of understand what she was learning as she was learning it and developing her own skills, and develop this beautiful trust to where I could surrender and let her guide me and tell me what I needed to do to let go and release a lifetime of stuff that I had been carrying, that giant bag of bricks on my back of guilt and shame and all those things that were keeping me stuck in this negative mindset all the time and blaming myself for why this happened or why this happened, and being able to walk with someone else was really helpful for me to be able to set down that bag of bricks and walk away from it, because it wasn't just me in a visualization letting all the emotions flood me. I felt like I had the safety that I needed in that time. And so, yeah, I think what you said was really beautiful. Really, knowing that it is a strength, 100%. It is not a weakness, just like vulnerability. It is our greatest strength to be able to open ourselves up, to share our stories, and to sit in them.
Right. Because when we share them, we're feeling them again ourselves too. And what you shared, I would be willing to bet that that was your intuition that led you to start that relationship with the hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
That would told you, like, do it with somebody. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I absolutely love that. I love hypnotherapy also. I've been diving into the QHHT recently. I don't know if you're familiar with the Dolores Cannon's work, QHHT. It's quantum healing hypnotherapy, I think. It's so profound, all of the different ways that we can get to. It's like there's all these different vehicles, but we're all going to the same destination, which is that heart space, that essence of ourselves, that true untouched, like, just self energy. And be it hypnotherapy or a meditation or a visualization or journaling prompt or a speaker, a dream, I don't know. There's so many things. A near-death experience, you don't know what it's going to be, but there's going to be a way that you're going to get there. And that also is too part of the process. Is like, look at that, just with what we were talking about, surrendering and trusting that things are just going to work out and not knowing how. Think about the how for everything. There's so many ways things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that, how can people start to rebuild that trust within themselves when they have ignored their intuition for years?
I love that question. And I think first, what I would say is, before beginning to listen, you have to acknowledge and give compassion to yourself for the time that you weren't. Not to be confused with getting upset with yourself or feeling like you should have started this sooner, or shame or guilt, back to those feelings. That is not the intention. The intention is to recognize, okay, I have not been doing this. And why haven't I? Get curious. Get curious about why you haven't been, because therein is going to lie a lot of information for you to discover about the variables and factors that have been controlling your life, which was not your intuition. And this is just information. So it's important to take a stance of neutrality. I'm just discovering, if my goal is I want to be more intuitive, be closer to myself, understand, like have that inner dialogue, use my inner compass, if you will. First, I need to understand, why haven't I been? Okay, now that I know that, okay, well, it's because, and it could be something as simple as when you're a kid and let's say your parents are fighting. You walk into the room, they're not fighting anymore. They had finished fighting. You walk into the room and the vibes are off. You can tell something just happened. You're like, something's off here. That's your intuition. When your mom says, you go, what's wrong, mommy? Oh, nothing, honey. Everything's fine. I'm just about to make lunch. Just go sit over there. Boom, intuition killer. You're a child. So you take everything on when we're a child, and this is the adult chair model that I'm trained in. It breaks our life apart from childhood to adolescence to adulthood. And when we're a child, we don't yet have discernment. So we're experiencing everything as a truth, and even into early adolescence, we don't. So if someone's telling us, hey, no, that's not true, nothing happened, we don't have it within ourselves to be like, she's lying. she's just trying to keep me calm so that I don't worry about her. That's not what our brains do whenever we're at that age. Our brains go, oh, I can't trust myself because something told me that there was something off here, but my mom said no. So, I can't trust myself. And it's little instances like that that bring us farther and farther away from our intuition and from trusting ourselves. So when we can start to notice the ways before we were an adult that we were allowing other people to join our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with ourselves should be very sacred. Me, myself. Like, I know I say it like there's two of us, but there's a bunch more, but there's one self. So when we allow other people to enter in, that's what creates the distance. So we have to understand what's created the distance to start to then bring us closer. And the closer we get, the more trust we create within ourselves to then receive information from ourselves. If our intuition, think about it as a part of us, and this part of us comes up and we're like, shut up, shut up, shut up every time, it's still there, but it's naturally gonna be a little quieter, or maybe not as in your face, or maybe you don't even notice it anymore. So you think that you don't have it. You do, I promise. There's nobody who doesn't have it. It's just that history of you shutting it down or not responding, which is not your fault. But when you start to take accountability and acknowledge that, it allows those walls to kind of start to naturally dissolve, where that trust can start to be rebuilt. You can start to hear gentle nudges from yourself. And the thing is, you can't go from 0 to 100 and be like, and it's like, quit your job and move across town. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm also not telling you not to do that. You decide which way you want to go about it, but you start to at least acknowledge it. Okay, I hear you. I hear you. And maybe it's not make this move, but it's, well, where is this coming from? And again, it's an opportunity to learn, where is this coming from? This desire, this urge, this go this way, don't do that. It's all information to get to know yourself. And from there, you reparent that part of yourself, and then you allow it to show up more, and your relationship, evolves from there. But there's one other uh response to that question, which is a little different, that I also think is worth mentioning, is when you are cultivating a relationship with the universe or with God or with source or with that higher power outside of yourself, different than intuition, but also still kind of related when you're looking to surrender and build that trust. If you haven't done it before, you can like play games, ask questions. All right, I'm about to I don't know what I want to eat for dinner. Show me a butterfly if it's pizza, show me a grasshopper if it's lasagna, and see what you see. And if I don't see anything, then I'm going to eat a ham sandwich. I don't know. But you start to ask questions, or like, ooh, okay, the first song that plays on my shuffle today is going to have a message for me. What is it? And you start to have the dialogue. You open the dialogue for the universe or God or source or whoever, whatever, to come in and start to play with you. And when you start to get those answers, you realize there is something much greater and outside of yourself that can be called upon, can be trusted. And when you develop that relationship, you start to realize it's also been there all along. And so you start to notice it more, and then it becomes a part of your life, and it's just like another layer to your experience, and it is without thought.
I love that. I love the suggestion of one, being curious, and two, playing games with it. I think we shut down so much of that ability to play the older we get. And it's not like go outside and jump rope or go roller skating. We're old now, we might break bones. But there's so much that we can do if we are just open to remembering how joyful it was to be a child and to be curious. And, I like to spend as much time outside and with my grandson, and just watching him see the world through his eyes, picking up his first dandelion, or chasing a grasshopper, or getting excited over a lizard. These are all things that can happen in a span of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And to just be open to seeing the joy in that, and what can the universe be telling me about all these things? Maybe you need to slow down and pay attention to the beauty around you, because sometimes that is the answer that you're seeking, and you don't even see it because it's right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you kind of went into my next question and covered it so well, was like gentle steps towards reconnecting with your inner voice, or being open to, like you said, receiving that there is something greater than ourselves out there. And you really covered it in such great suggestions and terms for people to just step back, slow down, be curious, have fun, play games. Like you said, life is beautiful, life is fun, and we should be open to enjoying life, because
It can be. It can be. And when it doesn't feel that way, though, like that's the opportunity as well, right? Because going back to what we said earlier, that's the suitcase that is going to be unpacked to get you back to that. because it's not that every single day I'm outside observing. And when you were talking about your grandson, that is me. I see the lizard, I see the bird, I am in there with nature. Mm, I love it. That's that my inner child. Yes, and I just bought a pair of roller skates last week from a garage sale that were my size. So I am all going to be rollerblading soon. We'll let you know how that goes. But funny you mention that, because I just got some last week and I was like, oh, I used to love roller skating. I can't wait to see if I still love it or if I hurt myself. Um, but one thing that I didn't say, it's very common for us to look to others. Like, you have clients, they go to you. I have clients, they come to me. We have teachers and authors that we look up to and all of those things. Our intuition, though, and that trust in that source outside of ourself, those two things, it is so imperative that we do allow others to support us on our healing journeys. But on that same note, it's important that we have time where it is just us, because that too is where that work lies, that relationship is waiting. It's not on me, bringing my phone out into the yard and watching a YouTube thing and putting my feet in the ground while I'm watching it. I believe that there's a starting point for every person. I'm not saying that that is bad at all. But if I were to give you even just like 5-minute practice outside of what you're already doing, something different, it would be to leave your device and go out alone, without headphones, without a phone, without a tablet, without any of that. And yes, get in nature. And if there's a place that you already feel drawn to that you can think of, go there. And if there's not, just go outside.
Yeah, great. Another great suggestion.
Outside to go inside.
And I have, some days it's a little bit of both. Some days it's one or the other. There's days where I allow the podcast that I'm listening to pick me. I'm not intentional and I'm not looking for something to answer a specific question. I let it pick me and find me for what I need to hear for the day. And there's days that I want to throw a towel on the ground and lay in my grass and just listen to the birds. That brings me a completely different answer in my day, in my mind, in my peace, and being able to just, like you said, just step away from those devices is such a great thing. I mean, I grew up in the generation where we didn't have internet, we didn't have cell phones. We were trusted to go out into the world and experience life and friends and not have this distraction. I watched my son growing up, and he was in Boy Scouts, and we had 6 boys in the troop, and they were always in my house, eating me out of house and home. But what I loved was that they had camaraderie. They did everything together as a group, and they weren't just sitting beside each other in the same room scrolling on their phone. They were having conversations, they were teasing each other, they were supporting each other, they were growing together. And I really loved that part of his childhood, was watching him interact with others, whether it was inside or outside, riding their bikes together, or when we were out on long hikes for Boy Scouts. I pushed and fought until I got the Boy Scout troop to allow me to be involved, because normally they want to keep women out of that sanctuary so that men can grow up to be men. And I just want to break that. I don't want men to grow up to be men, because you're teaching them how to rub dirt on it and suck it up and not be vulnerable. And I want to teach them the other side of that. And so I fought for the ability to be able to be the one involved with taking the boys on a 10-mile hike and showing them about rocks and dirt and leaves. And it's not just about hiking to get from point A to point B to earn a merit badge. It's about enjoying the journey.
Oh, yes.
And the time that they got to spend with each other. And so we made it even more fun. And
You got to do it.
huh?
You got to do it. That's amazing.
I was responsible for many merit badges for the boys, for Boy Scouts. But hiking was one of my favorite, because that was something that I just really loved, being in nature. So I was like, I'll take the boys for a 10-mile hike. And we made it more fun. We would take them hiking the ditch bank and let them stop along the way and fish, or just sit down and share a snack and share a story, or, get lost in it and chase a rabbit into the woods and just let them have fun. It wasn't just about earning the merit badge. It was really about experiencing life and time with each other and time with nature. And, so I learned a lot from them while teaching them the things that maybe my male counterpart wouldn't have done with them.
Oh, that's so cool, Leann. I love that.
It was a
And
lot of fun.
that's where a lot of who I am was formed, from Girl Scouts, and my mom was a troop leader. And the Girl Scout rule is you always leave the place better than you found it.
That's
And
it.
is to leave the world a better place than I
Right.
found it. Right there, it's from Girl Scouts. That's what it was all about. It was about connecting by the fire and feeling the clay and making something from it, and having the sense of belonging out in nature without all of the distractions. Beautiful. And then that's what I feel like there's generations that have gotten away from that, but that's why I feel so firm in part of my purpose in this lifetime, like to be a mother and to have motherhood, is to bring that back into the next generation, that sense of presence, because that was very much it became cool, and then it became normal, and now it's time to make it not so normal, because it's not normal. The length of time the planet has been around and humans have been around, and the period of time that we've been living this way of this like hyper distracted multitask. And I know it's really America, but other parts of the world too. But if we look at it, it's only been for a little while. It's not the norm. It's just has become the current norm. So it just is going to take another generation to bring us back to that sense of presence, and it's already happening. It's just yeah, I love that share. Thank you for good on you for
Reminding us where the joy comes from, and to slow down and appreciate all the beauty around us. You have a background in both psychology and energy work, and I love that. How do you integrate both in the healing journey while you're guiding others through?
So I think when I'm guiding others through, what helps me is intuitively, I feel like when I'm working with someone, I can get a sense for if what we need to do at that time, should I say. So the psychology is like the head, and the energy is like the heart. And so it's like the head and the heart. And I feel like this beautiful bridge that I've created in the work that I do that joins the two is what I mean when I say I can meet you where you're at. Because if you're a person who's super technical and you need to understand how things work for you to be able to allow yourself permission to have then an experience, I can talk you through it and then I can give you the experience. I feel like a lot of times we are scared of energy or energy work because we don't understand it with our mind. And I feel like psychology has given me all of the inner workings and the knowings for things to make sense. And then the energy work is just experiential. It actually has kind of taken that belief of that I had kind of clung to with the psychology background before I really started getting into Reiki and energy work on a deeper level. It's like, for me, the energy is always going to win though, because the energy is the experience. It's so personal. It's not up for anyone else's opinion or experience to chime in. It's just something me and myself that is a feeling, that is a guiding force. It's just a force. It's different. It's so different. But the psychology has been like the gateway into the energy. And now the energy and the psychology together just, I don't know if that directly answered the question or not. I get, when I start talking about energy work, sometimes I just like start thinking about experiences that I've had, and it's hard to continue to articulate what I mean, if that makes sense.
It does. And actually, it's really helpful, I think, having both sides, because you're going to have those clients that are the head clients. They want the science, they want the hard answers, they want the fast fixes. And then you're going to have the heart people who are open to understanding more than just the science and knowing that science is limiting and our heart is limitless.
Yes.
And when we can join them both together, we can accomplish so much more with, releasing what no longer serves us or stepping into deeper alignment with ourselves. And when you have both sides of that in your background, when you're working with somebody, I think it is really beneficial, because you can present them with the science of our energy force within us, and be able to explain, like in energy work, our chakras or breath, and how breath can help us release pain or release stuck energy. I think people are just, they're looking for that, give me a prescription and make it go away. And I listened to a song this morning, and I listen to it every once in a while, and it's called Be Careful What You Wish For. And it's this kid who has struggled with, many different things over life, and goes in to see a therapist or see a doctor and is given a prescription. And this medication has changed him entirely, what he can feel, what he can't feel. And that's what it is. Like, be careful what you ask for. Do you really just want a Band-Aid or a quick fix? Or do you want to really open your eyes, open your mind to these amazing possibilities that are so much greater than science even understands right now? And I think reminding people how limiting medicine and science still is, that we need to work with so much more to really be complete.
I totally agree with that. And then with the psychology portion of it, like how you were saying, sometimes you have to just explain things first. It's almost like explaining it to get the consent or the permission slip signed to then go have the energy work experience. And my background in psychology is specific to applied behavior analysis and or what's known as ABA therapy. And that is applying the behavioral principles of reinforcement and punishment to our day-to-day life. Meaning we behave and our behavior is either reinforced or punished. If it's reinforced, it's going to happen more. It's going to keep happening. If it's punished, it's going to stop. That's a simple way of putting it. But oftentimes it's using the psychology to teach people, hey, what's the behavior? And it's always different why a client's here. Maybe it's like an eating pattern, let's just say that. So if it is something specific like a behavior that we're looking at, the psychology comes in and it's very helpful. It's okay, what's going on just before you're eating? What's going on right after? And how are you feeling? And then we come up with a replacement behavior. Okay, well, what do we want to do instead? We have to understand what is it serving? What purpose is this serving in your life? And then what can serve this same purpose that is a different choice, a different way of getting there. And sometimes it starts there because that to me is all like more psychology. But once it starts being applied, and then we're experiencing freedom from this thing, or we're experiencing feeling proud of ourselves, or these feelings start to happen. And I think once the feeling comes online and that emotional awareness starts to increase, then we are more sensitive to our own energy. And we see that by changing things, we change our energy and we get those experiences. Like I was talking about, that it's energy work is an experience. And so once you have the experience of your energy changing, then you can be more open to say, wow, I feel different now. Okay. So you're telling me I actually could feel this way without having to write a whole goal plan for myself? Well, tell me more about that. And that's when I can say, yeah, let's do a 5D meditation. Let's go into the ether together and you can release it right now. We don't it doesn't even have to make sense.
Yeah, that is a big part of what I love about what we do as healers or people that help people just see the possibilities outside of themselves. Once we crack open that door and they see that possibility, they feel that positive energy, they feel what is possible for their life. Yeah, it really shifts from the brain to the heart.
Right. Right. That's the bridge.
And I like to call myself that bridge builder. I like to initiate and invite you to come and play with me for a minute. Let's just play, like you said, come into the ether with me. Let's go explore. There is so much out there when you're open to it. And sometimes it's just cracking that door a little bit to get them to see the difference between that reward or punishment that we tend to kind of live in, especially around food. And that there is other possibility. Thank you so much for sharing about what you do, who you help, how you help them. I have definitely looked into the adult chair model from our previous conversation, and that's something I'm very interested in learning more about. It may be on my list of upcoming additional education to move me forward in my journey to help others.
Highly cannot recommend a better program for you. I could not recommend a better teacher or program. That program is life-changing. I couldn't go through anything I've gone through without those tools.
Yeah.
would not be the person I am without it. So I'm so glad to hear that too. And I'm always here if you ever want to chat about anything adult chair related. I love it.
Yeah, I threw myself like right after our conversation, I was like, oh, I need to learn more about this. And, I take notes and then I go and I look and I'm like, huh, this makes so much more sense. And that's what I love about what I do and hosting these podcasts is because I get to open my eyes to something I've never heard of, never learned about, be curious, want to know more. And I'm hoping that our audience has the same connection to our conversation to, write down little notes and take time to learn more and be open to learning more. And if you want to know more about me and what I do, or about what she does, we'll make sure that all that information is in the show notes. What is one piece of soulful advice you would give to someone who feels like they're on the edge of a breakthrough, but afraid to take that leap?
If you feel like it's right there, but you're scared, I want to remind you that fear is false evidence appearing real, and that is the moment. That is the defining moment. Do it for your future self. Remember the desire that's on the other side waiting for you, because that fear is temporary, right? And nothing changes if nothing changes.
Perfect answers. Perfect answers. I'm learning a lot more about unpacking core fears. So, I think that that has to be what pushes us forward. That's what should be what makes us want to change. Because if we sit in fear, it's just going to keep us stuck. And, I learned that for myself, when I was in trauma response and in fog and feeling like I had lost my resilience or that I couldn't remember things. And I could have either sat stuck in that, or I could face those fears and say, okay, I don't like feeling the way I feel now, but I know that I've done this before. I've went back to school. I've opened this door. There is possibility for my future. It may be a little more difficult in my 50s than it was in my 30s, retaining information, learning new information. But I remind myself, I've done this. Like, I've done this. You know how to do this. It's within you.
So you're calling on your inner cheerleader, and I love that, because when we're going through those moments, we all have an inner critic and we all have an inner cheerleader too. Everyone's different who shows up, how often, how loud. But in that moment, you found your inner cheerleader and you were like, this is what I've done, this, and you built yourself up. And that's so powerful and helps you build that momentum to go forward by reminding yourself of what is true, that you are powerful. It is all, you create your own reality, you create your own experience. And so ask yourself, if you're scared, well, do I want to stay in this experience? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, go, jump, or stay, but make an informed decision, right? Make an informed decision. Check in with yourself. Is it fear? Or is it maybe not the right time? Because those are also very different. And how do you tell the difference? Well, if it's not the right time, it won't feel so big in your face. It won't feel so scary. Fear is like, you know, the intuition saying maybe not right now is going to be more like, is it really the right time right now? Have you really thought about it all? It's just going to invite you to contemplate a little bit.
Mhm. Be more curious. Absolutely. So where can people connect with you, Emily?
You can connect with me multiple ways. So my website is illuminatelife.coach. And there you can find out more about me, my story, my offerings, the adult chair. Also on social, I am on Instagram. I share different wisdom that comes through and resources that I create. That's at Illuminate Life Coach on Instagram. And that is where you can find me. Yes.
Wonderful. I will make sure and include all of that in the show notes so that people can find you, learn more about you. And I guarantee they will want to. Our conversation, really opened doors for me to want to know more about you. I was so excited for this conversation because of our previous conversations. Like, I couldn't wait to have time with you again. So I hope that, people in our audience are also drawn to learn more about you. Emily, thank you for reminding us that surrender is not a defeat. It's a return to our truth, our intuition, and our inner power. Your heart-centered wisdom and the way you blend science and spirit gives so many people the permission to soften, to trust, and to heal. Thank you for the very vulnerable stories that you shared with our listeners today. I know they're difficult, but they give you such power, and I could see the glow within you as you would share. And until next time, keep your happiness on tap and your heart wide open. Thank you, Emily, again for joining us today. This was such an amazing conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't think of a better way to have started my day, but with such great energy and a like-minded soul. And this has just been beautiful. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.